First up, quick check on the Asian markets. The trading mixed after a volatile session on Wall Street. The Nikkei is holding in the green. That was up close to around 0.3%, while you had the other markets that were more or less flattish. The Nikkei comes up for you on the screen. That's holding with a gain of around 0.3%. As I told you, the dollar yen moved to around 114 odd. Yesterday, we saw a bit of a pullback to around 113.5 odd. So today, some weakness being seen in the yen yet again. Good news for an export-oriented economy. The Kospi is now moved into the red. That's down close to around 0.2%. The Straits, for starters, that was trading with a bit of a cut. Now it's still down close to around 0.2%, while the Taiwanese index is up 0.2% as well. So fair to say that it's a mixed start for Asian markets, but the SGX Nifty is indicating only a 25 to around 30-point bump up just to kickstart trade. We had a big 100-point rally yesterday, but Brent crude prices have moved lower overnight, and that'll be good news for India and the Indian markets as well. So you could definitely factor in a 25, 30, maybe even a 50-point bump up just to kickstart trade.
Okay, so that was about Asia, but in the US market, stock fell in a volatile trading session, failing to regain footing after steep losses that we saw on Monday. Now, Dow yesterday fell around 100 points, while the S&P 500 was down about 0.2%, but Nasdaq managed to end in the flat territory. However, renewed talks on trade talks between US and China helped lift sentiment earlier in the trading session. We have CNBC's George Lipton getting us the wrap of all the action that happened on Wall Street yesterday.
U.S. stocks lower on Wall Street. The Dow off 100 points, the S&P down 4, and the Nasdaq flat. The drubbing in the oil patch continues. Oil prices falling sharply again today, down about 8% for its worst daily performance since 2015. It is the 12th straight down day for oil, the longest losing streak since the crude contract was created in 1983. Prices closing the day under $56 a barrel, a level unseen since November 2017. The quest for HQ2 has ended. Amazon announcing New York City and Northern Virginia will be the homes of 2 new corporate headquarters for the e-commerce giant. The announcement ends a year-long courtship by cities and metropolitan areas across North America, which included 238 bids and a narrowed list of 20 finalists. Amazon also announcing a new operations center in Nashville, Tennessee. And Starbucks cutting 5% of its global corporate workforce, or about 350 employees. In a memo, CEO Kevin Johnson also saying that some divisions of Starbucks will undergo significant changes to streamline the company's priorities. Starbucks is combating slow sales growth in the U.S., despite reporting a strong fourth quarter report early this month. That's the action from the U.S. market. Now back to you in Mumbai.
Okay, on that note, let's hear out what the global experts have to say about the road ahead for the U.S. market and the economy amid the looming trade concerns.
Overall, I would still think that the U.S. equity story is a strong one. You know, earnings have been good. The economy is growing at 3%. There has been deregulation. There have been tax cuts. I wouldn't say that it was fully unjustified. We are not overheating. There's no risk of a bigger crash, but it's an elevated ratio. And I think markets have come to that realization. And, you know, maybe now we are more in a kind of a normal environment where, you know, expectations for future earnings have been adjusting. At the same time, I don't think there's really reason to fear that there could be a bigger crash going forward in the U.S.
The underlying economy here in the United States is really cooking. I mean, we're hitting on all 8 cylinders. And to some extent, these trade issues are kind of shooting ourselves in the economic foot. And, you know, that's kind of been my story for a long time now, is I don't understand the need for these issues to disrupt what's actually a very healthy economy. The underlying economy is very good, but trade can easily derail, you know, the confidence.
Right now, investors, you really have to look at this as, is this a gift or is this going to be a lump of coal? And a lot of it does hinge on your outlook for what's going to happen with trade negotiations and what's going to happen with the Fed. In this type of environment, we think it's so important to remember the 2 cardinal rules of investing, which are diversification and patience. Sometimes these things just need to take time to play out. And we're hopeful and expecting that we will see some positive, some big trade deal announced by or before the November 30th G20 meeting. And that should be positive for the markets going into the end of the year.
Well, on the European markets, they ended in the green as trade talks between the United States and China improved sentiment. The DAX was a big outperformer. That was up close to around 1%. The CAC ended with the day with a gain of around 0.8%, while the FTSE was as flat as can be. So that's about the frontline indices. But if we're looking at the other broader markets as well, the peripheral indices, the ATEX, that as well ended higher with a gain of around 1.3%. But remember, we saw a sharp downtick in terms of crude. There was a bit of a crackdown out there. So some of those emerging markets, you know, they move with commodity prices and crude prices. Brazilian index down 0.7%. That's corrected nearly around 4,000 points from the recent peak. The Russian market as well ended with a cut of around 1.3%. But investors in Europe, they were tracking the key negotiations in the Brexit deal. And speaking of that, as per reports, the UK and the EU officials have agreed the draft text of Brexit agreement after months of negotiations. Now, the pound surged against the dollar and the euro following the negotiations. Now, but the cabinet and the parliament are yet to agree to the plans. Let's hear out what Michael Spencer, the next CEO, had to say about what will happen to the pound if the cabinet shares the Brexit decisions.
This is very, very important is an understatement. And the fine print and the detail in it will be critical. So any presuppositions right now as to whether or not it'll be supported by a cabinet or how the parliamentarians respond is candidly premature. We're all expecting what would broadly be described as a soft Brexit. The pound is obviously going to be the litmus test in the short run. I think clearly if the deal is perceived by the market as being a proper deal that Parliament will support, that her cabinet will support, I would imagine sterling could rally quite sharply, easily to 135, 137.
Okay, let's shift focus now to the currency space because the dollar index softens from previous session highs. Meanwhile, the yen trades around the 113 mark. Remember, the dollar had paused a 16-month rally reached in the previous session, currently trading around that 97 mark versus 97.6 we had seen in the earlier sessions.
Well, Brent crude prices cooling down below $66 per barrel. The dollar index from 97.5 coming to around 97. Let's see whether or not it's a good day for the Indian rupee. It's done quite well in the last couple of trading sessions. But we'll slip into a short break. You come back, we'll tell you all the cues and news that are stacked up for us when we open up for trade in the next couple of hours.